Off-season After Dark fans, welcome to a special episode. So we're going to start having some more of these now that we're in the summer and in the leading up to fall camps. I'm going to try to do a solo episode later in each week, so we'll still have our guest from another school. Next week is Fresno State having a guy who does the Beware of Bulldogs podcast. Then we'll still continue to do the daily shorts. I'm going to start doing more of those. We're going to unveil a series soon called CFB in 3 that will be on YouTube, Twitter, X, Instagram, wherever you are seeing this. But today, wanted to come to you with a solo episode, and we're piggybacking off of a concept that our brother channel, Biscuits and SEC, did, where they did the Super League concept. They did it in two parts. As you can see, I wrote that there, and that is also linked on my Twitter where I did the posting for this episode earlier, and then they had also retweeted them for you guys to easily see them. So they did parts 1 and 2 where the concept is obviously the Super League, where it's 6 divisions of 8 teams, and the idea would be a relegation promotion type situation. So Biscuits guys, they kept it regional to some extent. I will do the same, but the idea is that it would be more regional help the regular season, and then the lower teams would then get relegated to a second division, as we see in European soccer. My idea that I'm bringing to you today is that second division. So I am also going to have 48 teams, 6 divisions, and then in theory, the best of my divisions would get into their first division. The teams at the bottom of their first division would get relegated into the 48 that I have. So I'm going to show you, share my screen here and talk a little bit about walking you through this. So as you can see here, that's the our collaboration together, and this would be the second division. This is the division, first division that the Biscuits boys did. So you see here, these are the 48 teams they picked. You'll notice a few things here at the bottom of the 4 P4 conferences. So there are 48. It's all P4 teams, and then Notre Dame is in there. They didn't pick all the P4 teams. We'll get to that. But you'll notice some teams here that have asterisks near the bottom. South Carolina, Arkansas, Kansas, Florida State, SMU, Stanford, Cal, UCLA. Those teams with the asterisk, that means one of Bossman or Hammer picked them, but not both. So I had to make a final 48 to go from. So they deferred on 8 teams. So 40 of their teams they agree on. You will see the 40 here that do not have an asterisk across all 4 conferences. They agreed on 40 of them. 8 teams they did not. I had to finalize it with 8. So I picked half of each of their lists essentially. So this is how the breakdown looks for them. So SEC-wise, we have Missouri, Oklahoma, Texas A&M, LSU, Texas, Ole Miss, Alabama, Auburn, Georgia, Florida, Tennessee, Kentucky. Big 12, BYU, Utah, Arizona, Arizona State, Kansas State, Iowa State, Oklahoma State, TCU, Texas Tech. ACC-wise, Miami, Clemson, Virginia Tech, Louisville, North Carolina, and then Notre Dame, obviously an independent. They both did pick Notre Dame. Big Ten-wise, we have Oregon, Washington, USC, Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State, Minnesota, Illinois, Wisconsin, Indiana, Michigan State, Iowa, Nebraska. Then I just mentioned to you those teams with the asterisk. They made my final 48, even though they only made one of the 2 of the Biscuits guys. So in looking at my second division here, Obviously, it's going to be 48 teams, 6 divisions of 8. We talked about that. There were 22 P4 teams that they did not select. I automatically am picking all 22 of them. I don't think there is a realistic scenario if a Super League would get formed where any of those P4 teams do not get chosen, whether it be Big Ten, SEC, ACC, or Big 12. They would be included in the second division. And there were teams from all 4 of those conferences that did not get selected. That leaves 26 G6 teams to get selected, of which that was the bulk of the work I did here, and we will get into that in a little bit. Regionally, obviously, I broke it down regionally in the divisions, and after I go through each of the divisions, I will show you a map with lines and the locations breaking down all of them. The Biscuit Hammer and Boss Man, they chose regional names for their divisions, but they were a little different. They didn't have 6 uniform for each of them. I tweaked it a little bit. I named the divisions after a college coach who was in the Hall of Fame and coached in that region for each of them. So it's 6 different Hall of Fame coaches who coached in this region. And then just some of the criteria I looked at is recent success of the program, the brand they have nationally, the TV market. Realistically, these things will be included. And the just overall, and trying to take all of this, in a holistic model of success, brand, regionality, trying to include rivals in something that will, one spoiler, Army, Navy, Air Force all made it. Army, Navy in the same division, but when there were some deciders like that, rivalries and the brand obviously made a difference. So I will get right into it with my divisions, and the first one, we will start out west. So in what I called the John McKay division, of course, the former USC Hall of Fame coach who was the first coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We have the Washington State Cougars, Oregon State Beavers, Boise State, Fresno State, UNLV, San Diego State, Utah State, Wyoming. Wazoo and Oregon State were no-brainers here. Nobody was hurt by conference realignment more than them. They were P4 teams, or I guess Power 5, because the Pac-12 was existing then, but they were going to good bowl games, putting a lot of guys in the NFL. But when the Pac-12 went away, nobody wanted them. They were hurt a ton. So I think they make it here, and this would be something where it wouldn't shock me if they, can get that brand back and see success. Very few G6 teams have been more successful than Boise. They were also an obvious one. Fresno, UNLV, San Diego State, all were pretty, much locks to make this do. Fresno's been a big brand ever since the Pat Hill, Jeff Tedford days. They have a good thing going, and now Matt Entz obviously is doing a good job there. Again, I'm going to promo my visitor next week, Beware the Bulldogs, so we're going to talk Fresno State. UNLV's done awesome. They would not have been on this list a couple years ago, but after what Barry Odom did and Dan Mullen has continued to do, UNLV's on the way back up. San Diego State is going to be good with Sean Lewis again. Brady Hoke had them pretty competitive. They're going to be a good team. And then the two tougher ones to pick here, Utah State and Wyoming. With Utah State, we have in the Division I, Utah and BYU both made it. Logically, it makes sense to put a team that they would advocate for, as a decider. And then Wyoming, the past decade has been competitive. Craig Bull did a good job, and now Jay Sobel has them, remaining in there. And to me, these teams were, they got the nod just over, say, a Nevada. San Jose State was a very tough one to leave off, but New Mexico State was not really. So these teams made my 8-team McKay division out west. Next, we have the Edwards Division, of course, named after Lavelle Edwards, BYU Hall of Fame coach. This division essentially is 3 Colorado teams, 5 Texas teams. So you'll see the map, it's uniquely shaped down the middle. But we have Colorado, of course, one of the P4 teams that did not make the first division. Colorado State, their in-state rival. And then Air Force also in the state of Colorado. Then, and with Air Force, we have the 3 service academies all will make it. So that's another added. I don't see a scenario where they would get left out. Then our 5 Texas teams. We have Baylor, Houston. Both of those 2 were no-brainers to me. After the other Texas P4 teams all were included in the first division. And personally, had I been doing this one, I would have put Houston in the first division of the 48. But that wasn't on me. I didn't do that one. But Baylor, Houston both make it easy. And then the next 3 from Texas, we have UTSA out of the American, North Texas, also American. And both of those 2 have had recent success and are in major cities. So it makes sense that we put them in there. Now we have Texas State, obviously a team who is in San Marcos near the Austin area. They moved from the Sun Belt to the new look Pac-12. Success-wise, they've been okay. They've not reached expectations with Kinney. I think a lot of people thought he would go there and within a couple of years would be at a P4 job. They never even won their division. They were never the Sun Belt West champions or played for a conference title. But school-wise and athletic-wise, they're a step ahead of most G6 teams. They have a big alumni network, good funding, nice facilities in a good location. I think Texas State, for me, it was hit and miss if they were going to make this over some of the Sun Belt and American teams. I gave Texas State the nod, and I'm okay with that. The next division we will get to is the Blake Division, named after Red Blake, former Army West Point coach, won multiple national titles. This is our New England/Northeast Division. So we have Boston College, Syracuse, UConn, Pittsburgh, Maryland, Rutgers, and Army-Navy. Boston College, for me, is a no-brainer. They have struggled. Last year they were 2-10. They did go to a bowl game in 2024. They're one for me I may have put in my first division of 48 just because they are New England's team in a lot of ways. Boston is a major sports market, and Boston College has a good brand. So for me, they're an easy second division team, if not in the first. Syracuse Orange, they're another Carrier Dome of it. Well, the former Carrier Dome, but I think they'll be solid again this year after really struggling last year. Fran Brown's a good coach. They were good in his first year in 24. Last year, they were good until Steve Angeli got hurt, and they just didn't have a backup QB. This year, I think, pending health, Syracuse will be pretty good. UConn has been a very good G6 team. They're an independent still. They're going to win a lot of games this year. New coach Jason Candle, formerly at Toledo. I don't buy into what the UConn fans say. If we're not a G6 team, well, sure, you're not in a G6 conference, but you're not a power team either. So UConn makes this, though. They've been successful. Jim Moore Jr. was a very good coach. Pittsburgh is probably a hard luck one not to make the first division. They didn't, but here, Pat Narduzzi's done a very good job. They've been consistent, making bowl games most years. They were a good addition here, and they were a team who I think would contend to be that division winner or second and get a promotion. Maryland and Rutgers both out of the Big Ten. Maryland has been super up and down. Michael Oxley was recently on my hottest coach in the country list. I think in the Big Ten, he is on the hottest seat. We'll see what Maryland does, but in that D.C. area, they easily make this list. Keeping Malik Washington was massive for them. We'll see if they can make a jump this year. Rutgers, obviously the closest FBS P4 team to the New York City area. Greg Schiano's done a really good job there, good coach, even though record-wise they've just been kind of ho-hum. Antoine Raymond should be a good running back this year. And then we have Navy and Army, two of the bigger brand G6 teams, obviously going back the entire history of college football. They've been relevant. Their rivalry game is one of the biggest of the year. They were easily going to make this, as did Air Force. The next division, we have the Rockne division, of course, named after Knute Rockne, Notre Dame Hall of Fame head coach, one of the legends. And we have a mix of Midwest / Appalachian region here, kind of butts up to several of the other divisions we have, but Northwestern and Purdue, both of whom miss out on the first division. For me, Northwestern was a tough one to omit. Being in Chicago, I think that gives them a leg up on being a potential first division team. They didn't make it, so for me, they were a home run here. Purdue has some good history there, even though recently they have really struggled. Cincinnati, Scott Satterfield had a successful season last year. We'll see if they can follow that up in the Big 12. Same with West Virginia, another Big 12 team who has had a good history, a lot of proud success there. Rich Rod should have them better this year with Michael Hawkins, the Oklahoma transfer at QB, and Cam Cook, the Jacksonville State transfer at running back. In-state Marshall follows them up, my place of employment, proud Marshall guy. They're one of the bigger brands in G6, have been for years, going back to the Randy Moss years, and very few teams have had national movies made about them. Marshall makes this list, as does Western Kentucky, one of the few CUSA teams who will make this list. Ty Helton has them competitive every year. They're winning 8-9 games, it seems like, throwing the ball around all the time, losing coordinators to better jobs almost every year, but somehow they keep winning games. And most people know the Hilltoppers. Vanderbilt, one of the SEC teams to not make the first division. They're a home run here. You'll see me multiple times weekly on Locked On Vandy with Corey. Being in Nashville, the success they've had, they're probably another team that would feel hard up not to be in that first division. They weren't, so glad to have them in the second division. And then Appalachian State, another team similar to Marshall, who going back to their days in the FCS or 1AA at the time, multiple national titles in that division, has given them a big brand, and everybody knows who they are. Boone's a great campus, good atmosphere. App State definitely is a team who is going to make this division. Next, we have the Beamer division, of course. Frank Beamer, former Virginia Tech legend. This conference is all Virginia / North Carolina, so geographically very small window. But we have Virginia, ACC champions last year. How you get, win a P4 conference and then get left out of the first division. Tough luck for them, but glad to have Virginia. Hopefully Tony Ellett can keep it going there for them. James Madison, champions of the Sun Belt last year. They will be the favorites again in the Sun Belt this year with Billy Napier. JMU easily makes this. Liberty, the second and I believe final CUSA team that will make my list. They struggled last year. The year before, they were just okay. Before that, with Chadwell and Hugh Freeze, they were pretty good. Liberty would not get left out of this. They will pay whatever it takes and financially absorb hits more than most so they can be involved. And that financially will compensate for a lot. Liberty will do whatever it takes to be involved. Old Dominion has been another successful G6 team in the Sun Belt. Ricky Ronnie is doing a good job, has really turned them around. They were good last year in 2025. I suspect they will be good again in 2026. Duke, another team who played in the ACC title last year. Duke was the ACC champions last year and not Virginia. And they make this second division. I got that mixed up as I was talking through it. But Manny Diaz had them as the conference champs last year. Duke is one of, if we were doing all sports, Duke probably makes the first division because of basketball. But if this is just football, they might not. It's iffy. But here, they would be very competitive in this. Wake Forest, another ACC team that got left out. Jake Dickert entering his second year after leaving Washington State, another team we talked about today. Wake was very good in his year one. I think they will keep improving. And in a year or two, I suspect Dickert will use that to get a better job. East Carolina, number 8. They have been very good with Harrell, doing won 9 games last year when he took over midway through 24. They went on a heater. The good QB receivers last year. That atmosphere is great. They're good at multiple sports. They would be very competitive in a division like this. And I think for me, they were an easy team to pick and make it here. The sixth and final division, we have the Bowden division, of course, Bobby Bowden, one of my favorite coaches ever, Florida State legend. And this is the Southeast. So we have Central Florida, South Florida, both of those teams, for UCF's Big 12 now, South Florida still American, but they're growing at an exponential rate, big enrollments. South Florida is getting a new stadium. UCF has a decent stadium in the bounce house. These teams are attractive for recruits, fans, everyone. They wouldn't be left out of this situation. Georgia Tech, an ACC team. We're in Atlanta, a great sport town. Brent Key's done a really good job. They'd be here. Jacksonville State. They are another CUSA team, so I was wrong. They are the third. They've done extremely well since moving up from the FCS. Rich Rod won a conference title with them. Then last year, Charles Kelly turns around in year one and takes them to the conference title game. Jacksonville State was one that I had to consider. Some other teams. The market, Jacksonville, Alabama, is not massive, but they've been so competitive that they were a team I just couldn't leave out. Memphis, one of the higher profile G6 teams. Charles helped taken over there this year after Ryan Silverfield went to Arkansas. Prior to that, Mike Norvell was there, now at Florida State, of course. Memphis is a no-brainer to be here. Troy won the Sun Belt West last year, will probably be the favorites to win it again this year. Jared Park is doing a good job. Troy was the one in this division where I had to do some homework and look hard, but they earned it. I think they've got a good following there, and they edge out some of the other Sun Belt and American teams in that part of the country who were vying for this. Kennesaw was kind of the big rival for Troy in CUSA. They did win their conference last year, but in the end, Kennesaw was one of the tougher teams to leave out. Tulane, been fantastic with John Summerall the last couple of years, and Willie Fritz before that. Being New Orleans' team, Tulane was an easy keep here and getting them in this division. And then Mississippi State, the final team from the SEC, of course, they're going to make it. As I said, all Power 4 teams would. So the Bulldogs get in here after missing out on the first division. This now is the map, and you will see how it's broken down. Our McKay division, about the western third of the country. Geographically, that's a very spread out area. As you can maybe see by the line here separating Wyoming and the Colorado teams, I picked the 48, then divided them regionally. We see here the Edwards division, the 3 Colorado teams and the 5 Texas teams. The Rockne division, that Great Lakes, Appalachian area, going from Illinois down to northern Tennessee, then western North Carolina, and then the 2 West Virginia teams in WVU and Marshall. The Blake division up in the Northeast here. You may not be able to see Navy is in Maryland, but we have Maryland and Navy over here with Pitt, and then all the way up to BC, UConn, Syracuse, Army, Rutgers. The Beamer division, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina put in that division, even though there are no teams from South Carolina there. Coastal did not make it, though they were a tough omission. They've been successful. But that Beamer division, we have the Virginia and North Carolina teams. And lastly, we have the Bowden division here in the Southeast: Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee, and Louisiana. So that is the second division here in our relegation and promotion co-op with Biscuits and SEC. Very glad to do this. It was a fun exercise. Please feel free to comment if you disagree with me on any of these. One tough thing, and I am cognizant of this, I did not choose any MAC teams. Toledo was tough to leave out. as was Buffalo and Miami, Ohio. Those three have all been competitive teams. For me, I think the MAC is just kind of shrinking at this point, though, and the national brand isn't there as much. I also don't know that the resources are there and the commitment to staying successful. So I was aware in picking this. No, I didn't intentionally leave out the MAC. Just when I was picking and comparing and choosing, I didn't pick any of them. And part of that is, that region, but didn't pick any MAC teams. And I'm aware of that. Just kind of one of those things that happened. So feel free to comment, tell me what you like, dislike, or if you have another thought experiment. Any suggestions, I would love to do them. If you want to comment, whether you comment publicly, send me a DM. Always looking to collaborate. And next week, remember, Beware Bulldogs having their podcast host on to talk Fresno State football. Thank you. Take care.